Annyeong and welcome back to Mikey Techs. Today we're going to be going over a Hall of Fame keyboard and we're going to have to thank Cerakey for sending out the Maris60. Now, there's something to keep in mind about the Maris60 is that this is going to be a Kickstarter. So I want to give a disclaimer before we start this video that it is a Kickstarter board, meaning you're going to have to be careful when you are making a purchase because Kickstarters are a little bit risky, right? There's always a bit of risk in there, but at least it is from a brand that has been around for a while. So wanted to give you guys this disclaimer before we started. Now, this is a fully built, pre-built Hall of Fame keyboard by Cerakey. It's gonna be a ceramic case, ceramic keycaps, and their own switches with a PCB. We're gonna have to see how this is, so let's go straight into the unboxing, but please make sure to like and subscribe. Now introducing the Cerakey's Maris60. So there is a regular version and then there's a Pro version. The Pro is going to be with a ceramic casing while this one's going to be an aluminum case. So keep in mind there is going to be some differences between the two of them. So one of the things I noticed right there is that the packaging is actually quite nice. It is a very minimalistic type of packaging. It does look really nice and it matches up with this whole theme of what they're doing, and they even provide you this little letter as well where the manual is going to be and things like that, which is I think just this little nice touch to have. Now they do provide a keycap puller and it is made with the plastic, which I understand why, because these are going to be ceramic keycaps and you want to keep it protected, so very smart of them to provide this, I think, over getting like metal keycap pullers. I do think they should have went with a USB-C to C with an adapter to USB 3.0. That's just my honest opinion, but it's fine. It is a braided cable and it does work with 8K. Now we're going to take a look at the board itself. So this board is going to be quite nice in terms of the design. I think very cute and very pretty looking overall. I had to go with the pink color just because this was the only thing that was left. I did want to try out the green, but this pink does look really nice. If you are someone who likes like a very light pinkish color, you're going to enjoy this specific one, though I think the green does look a lot nicer overall. Now you can see this case does remind you a little bit of the Holy 60. It does feel a little bit thick. I'm going to be honest, the front and back thickness seems to be thicker than usual. This is a coated one as well, but it does look pretty nice. And let's weigh it before we go into the sound test. And this thing weighs a total of 1.2 kg. So let's do the Teardown and take a look to see what we're looking at. So overall, these are going to be ceramic keycaps. They do feel a little bit different and they do have a nicer, lighter feel to it. You see the plastic on the back. So they did change it up a little bit. I think the overall texture also does provide a little bit more grip, which is quite nice. I didn't really like the whole glossy feel sometimes because you really do get a lot of fingerprints on it. These ones, you're not going to get a ton of fingerprints, which is great. And it's not flex cut plate. It's that feels like an FR4 plate as well, so I believe it is an FR4 plate, and they did actually create their own switches. Now the front height is going to be 22.9 millimeters. That's including the feet as well, so keep in mind this for yourself. And then the back is going to be 36.2 millimeters. That's including the feet, and that's included all going to be about 7 degrees in terms of the typing angle. But the board overall is actually still a little bit thicker than your usual board, so just keep in mind these facts. Now this is going to be tray mounted, so you just have to remove the specific screws, but for some reason they put these little covers on the screw areas. I do understand the idea behind it. It is nice. So like if you take apart the board and you look at it, it does provide a little bit more of a cleaner look to it. But the only thing is though, is if you wanted to go in and mod it, it's just a little bit difficult to get everything out. So keep in mind for yourselves, if you are wanting to mod this, you will have to get those out first. And then you're going to need a Phillips screwdriver. So there's going to be Phillips screws. And the nice thing about it was that they are magnetic, which is really, really nice. Because sometimes when you deal with tray mounted boards, it's very difficult to get the screws out. Now, you just have to push from the back after you get all the screws. But let's also take apart the PCB and from the plate just to see what we're getting with for both. Now, I found that there was like a static sheet that's supposed to be on top of the PCB. I didn't really like it. It doesn't really
seem like your usual static sheet. It kind of looks like more those papers that you use when you're cooking. It's really weird. I was very surprised with this, and this is the first time I've seen something like this. I'm not a big fan, and they have these cutout holes for the screw and stabilizers, but the PCB doesn't have that, so that's also weird as well. Now, in terms of the thickness of the PCB, it looks like it's 1.4 millimeters, which is a very interesting thing for sure. I'm very surprised to see how that was. Now, it is silicone in the middle. It kind of reminds me of the friction fit like Wu-Ting, which we'll take a look a little bit later in terms of fitting into the case. Now, in terms of the plate thickness, it is going to be 1.5 millimeters, so that is going to be the thickness of the plate, but it just feels a little bit off compared to the PCBs. Like the PCB seems a little bit thinner, but doesn't seem like it's a 1.2. Now, in terms of the bottom, you get another silicone, and then you get this sheet that kind of feels like it's aluminum a little bit. That's something I found kind of interesting as well, but that's also the design for the back that you look through. So it kind of feels like a bit of a cheap way to get out of it. I think they could have done something a little bit better, like the Gateron one, where they actually had like a, plastic plate that actually went under the bottom. That would have been nicer. But we're going to try modding it with regular foam. And in terms of stabilizers, we are looking at plate mounted stabilizers. They are decently lubed. I didn't really find any ticking at any of them. So that's something good to see as well, that, they did a good job in terms of this aspect. Now, as I said, I'm not going to do a tape mod or anything, but we're just going to do the foam. And I can actually see that the friction fit works with this case perfectly for a Wu-Ting. So in terms of this case, the aluminum version, you actually could make it a Wu-Ting mod, which is actually quite interesting to think about. It would be a very easy thing to do, but let's put it back together and then we'll do a sound test comparison between the stock and the mod version.
So, we've done the whole sound test and teardown. My thoughts in terms of the board itself. One of the things to note on this board is that it does have a very high profile. I don't know if you guys can really see it. We did measure it in the teardown, but you can really see that it is quite high. The overall board side profile wise, if you compare it with, say, some of the boards out there, it's definitely feel a little bit higher than usual. It's not bad, like the front, because of how it lifts down. It is actually not too uncomfortable. And personally for me, I didn't mind it for like the low Heisen, for example. I know some people had complaints about it. I personally didn't mind like the whole high profile. There's one thing to note for that. Also too, the sound wise, it wasn't the most amazing sound. I think the switches they're used in is very deep sounding, but the thing to consider is the fact that it is deep, but it is muted. So you're getting a very muted sound with this overall sound profile, and the whole board itself is a very decent quality. The ceramic case is actually quite sturdy. I think this is a better actual case compared to their Peak 60 case that they did. I think overall, the building wise and just considering the quality wise of their finish, this seems like it's actually done a lot better comparatively to the Peak 60. The ceramic keycaps also feel very different. They're going to be a little bit different with the overall finish as well, so you get a little bit of a weird texture. I don't know if it's going to be good or bad. But it does feel like it's a ceramic texture. It's just an interesting feel. So it's not like a polished, soft, smooth texture, but it does feel more ceramic compared to, say, some of the old Cerakey keycaps. Overall, it's very well designed. It does remind me of the Holy 60. I'm going to be honest with you guys. It is like a Holy 60, but a ceramic version of it. And I think in comparison to the Holy 60, this one's just a little bit better. But we're going to have to go in more depth, really try it in gaming as well, and see my thoughts on it, especially with the software, and see if it is any good. So let's go into that.
So, as I mentioned with the loudness, they're actually very quiet in terms of these keycaps. I mean, to be fair, the keycaps, like the ceramic keycaps, are actually really holding up the sound overall in terms of the loudness, but the switches are very quiet. You see here that there is that like finish on top of them, which gives you a little bit of friction, and then the weird plastic sheet. The overall coating is quite well done. The back of this board does really remind you of the Holy case, and it does look nice, but I do wish they went with something different in terms of the screw cool covers. The switch is quite interesting. I think they should have went with the heavier spring like the spacebar. I'm really glad they provided it, but just all of them would have been nice as well. And overall, the side lighting is only in the front. They should have done all like back, front, and sides so that it looks nicer overall with this board. It just would have went really well with this whole theme. Now, this is going to be a Kickstarter, so guys, keep in mind, you have to be careful because Kickstarter, you just never know what's going to happen, but it is a brand that's been around for a while. Now, in terms of the software, it is similar to, say, the Everglide one that we tried. It is going to be kind of like that, but different skin, and it's actually a decent software. Like you can see here, it is simple. It's not the nicest looking software, but at least it works quite well. The lighting also is very, very bright on this board, and I think it looks really pretty when you do turn on the lights. I also like the fact that the keycaps actually can shine through the light, so that's a really nice addition to these ceramic keycaps, is that you get the lighting that comes through. Just keep in mind when you are doing custom lighting, you left click to set the keys that you don't want the light to change, and then you can right click to kind of reset it back to the other. So it's a little bit interesting and weird to do, but it's left or right click to be able to kind of change it up for yourselves. So just keep in mind this when you are doing that. Now, in terms of the setting up, so we're going to set it up for Apex. You can see the numbers on the top left corner. The setting in terms of actuation is very, very simple, right? You can do different rapid triggers, but you can also just set it up with the specific like actuations, which I'm doing, and I prefer the setting for actuations to be the same as the depress instead of having two separate choices, but that's just me. Now, in terms of Super Glide Trainer is where it tests to see, do I have to make any small changes? And you can see here that I make the additional changes just from looking at the numbers and like seeing like what I need to change just to be able to be more accurate with it. So this is something you can do for yourselves. If you are an Apex Legends player, this is how you can go in and make sure that your settings do work in terms of being able to use super glides. Now, going into the custom key setting to set different keys, you actually have the profiles available. So this keyboard does have profiles, they do save, and I can see that you do get the keys, which is great, but they're not actually set up right away. So that means that you have to make sure that they're set up. So keep in mind, when you are doing this, make sure you set it up for yourselves. Now, I also checked to see if the profiles would change in terms of colors, and they do. So your colors do save, which is awesome to see, but you just have to make sure you set it up. And if you change to a different profile, make sure you set up the profile keys in there as well, because if you don't, it's going to be not there and you're not going to be able to change it back. So that's something I also realized for this too. Now, in terms of the overall advanced keys as well, you do get all the different choices, right? This SOCD, mod tap, all of that's available. And if you go into the settings too, you can actually change the polling rate. So let's test out the polling rate and make sure that gets 8K. And we're actually going to see that the numbers are quite high. That's just going to be due to the scan rate. And then it does get the 8K overall. But if we change it to 1K, we just have to make sure it does work. And it also is able to change to full 1K, which is a very good thing. This is something I want to see every Hall of Fame keyboard be able to do. Now, playing in Apex and trying it out. So, Super Glides is going to be something that you still have to practice, right? They're not going to be perfect right off the bat. But I did notice that overall, with this board, I felt myself in terms of the specific angle that this board was, it took a little bit longer to get used to. And it did feel like I could have used a wrist rest. That's just what I felt. But the funny thing is when I used the Hyzen, it wasn't actually that bad either. Like, I actually found that it was okay. But for this one, it just felt a little bit less comfortable. I'm not actually exactly sure what it might have been. In general, this one, it does work quite well, right? Like, you can see me super gliding and like doing different movement and practicing here. And it's a lot of fun, being able to do these kind of super glides easier. It is a lot of fun. And to be fair, like, I use mechanical keyboards because I love the sound of them. And I actually use it a lot more for gaming because I love the sound. In general, it's hard to pull this off. Like, and with a mechanical keyboard, I can keep practicing, and yes, I can get kind of close, but it's just using a Hall effect is so much easier. Being able to do specific movements that, you're not able to do with a mechanical keyboard unless you practice a lot more. This just is kind of a cheat code to make it easier for you. Now, in terms of picking up items too, it's so quick, right? This is going to be a small advantage that I get against other players, being able to loot quicker than they can in terms of the game, which is, you know, fair to say a little bit of an advantage. Now, in terms of the recoil setting as well, so in Apex Legends specifically, there is recoil smoothing if you move, and you can also spam AD with Hall effect keywords. It doesn't really work with mechanical, but you can also do that to kind of smooth the recoil as well. Now you can see here in Valorant that it's also going to be like the strafing thing that people use. You can see how my character completely stops when I am doing the shooting and moving and strafing. If you do use the SOCD, it does help a lot in just the fact that you don't fully stop. Like, you're going to have movements that it's not fully breaking, as you can see here, where it swings left and then swings right, and you can do those movements just to kind of trick your enemies for when they are shooting at you, but of course it's going to require practice. Now you also get the advantage of being able to use your skills a lot quicker, and in terms of Neon, I think it just seems really fun to be able to use the alt and be able to spam. You also need a good mouse for this though, but you can spam movement constantly and just kind of make it confusing to be able to trick enemies and not get them to shoot you easily. Now in terms of comparing it with competitors, so a few things to note in terms of the sound wise. The board, I don't think the board was going to be too amazing in terms of the sound. I'm just going to be honest with that. Software wise, I give it an 8.5 out of 10. It's a very good software. It has everything you need, and it has the profiles, and it has the polling rate change, which is awesome. The sound wise, I really did have to give it a 6.5 out of 10, and that's just because the switches were so muted and kind of mushy that I wasn't a big fan of it, and it felt like there was missing sound depth in terms of them. I really think if they went with the heavier springs with every single key, it just would have been a lot better. I think because of how light they are with the ceramic keycaps, it's just making the overall sound kind of dampened, and I wasn't a big fan of it. I think actually with the foam and removing some of the stuff made it sound a lot better. Now, in terms of comparing with the competitors and considering the price, there's going to be a lot of different boards out there, right? There's some budget boards out there if you compare it to like the Wu-Ting, or even if you compare it to say many of the boards that we've tried. It's sitting pretty good in per se of the $89, but we have to keep in mind that's Kickstarter pricing. I don't know how much it's going to be afterwards. The $199 for the ceramic case, you know what? It makes it unique. It's something that really isn't done before, which I think makes this board really unique in terms of that aspect. And it's hard to really say that the pricing is not good enough. I think, you know what though? The $89, you can actually buy that and have a PCB extra, but you can also even have it as a case for your Wu-Ting. And it's actually priced probably similar to other cases out there. So overall, the pricing wise is actually pretty decent. I think it is quite good, and I think you guys should go check it out for yourselves if you're interested in something like this.
In terms of the overall board, now mine wasn't the ceramic case version. This is the aluminum version. The ceramic version is actually a lot more expensive, so mine's not the Pro. Mine's just the regular Maris60. Now the Maris60 Pro version, I think price wise $200 USD is not super expensive when you consider all the other Hall effect keyboards that we've compared it with in terms of the competitors, but it's still pricey, right? This one, the aluminum version, is actually a lot more affordable. At 89 USD, I think that's a pretty good deal, especially considering it's a full aluminum case. You're also getting ceramic keycaps, and you are also getting the whole gaming potential. But the ceramic keycaps, I'm gonna be honest with you, are a little bit iffy, right? These ones do feel better than their polished and glossy ones in terms of like the overall feel and texture, as well as being able to be not slippery, and probably a little bit last longer in terms of like it feeling it's gonna get greasy and such. But the biggest thing is the fact that the switches are really not amazing. I think they really should have looked into just using switches that are already available in market that are good, that are more budget. There's going to be a lot of them out there they probably could have gotten a deal with in terms of brand deal and then got together with that. I think that would have worked out better. It was smart of them to make a spacebar much better with that, especially the fact is that, it has a heavier spring. Just, in my honest opinion, I would have loved to see a little bit more come out of it. The sound is too muted for me, but the design-wise, I do think they did a great job. It does look quite nice, and I'm quite worried though in terms of the ceramic case version how sturdy that one is. It would be interesting to see if someone does review it and actually sees like how sturdy it can be, because if you accidentally dropped it, I don't know if that one would last. But this aluminum one at least you won't worry about it cracking or breaking or things like that. I'll have the links in the description. You can go check it out. Their Kickstarter just started today where the video went up, and you guys can go check it out for yourselves on there. And hopefully, if you're interested, this video helped you guys out. Please go check out the other videos I got, and I'll have to catch you guys next time.